Good afternoon. I would like to start off with something very cheesy to all of the designers in the crowd, which is less is more. It is something that Dieter Rams once said. And it means that good design is something that's not designed at all, that does not look intentional at all. We as Indians, we love the concept of jugaad. We fix things with a bit of thread and we put tape everywhere. We put a piece of folded paper just to fix furniture. And that's great, and we were taught to celebrate it. We are taught to be proud of it in design schools. But somehow, like, left me with a little bit of unease, which is where does craft start and jugaad end? I grew up in Odisha. And in Odisha, you are essentially born in the lap of culture, Bomkai, Pasapalli, all of these beautiful textiles, beautiful architecture, history that has basically lived on forever. And this craft is intentional, and it does leave you with the question that we do have very good taste. So how do we design products that do not need to be stashed away in a corner or a drawer, but rather you can very proudly display on your table, you want to use it, you feel like you identify with the product instead of you needing to use it, which is essentially the ethos of Jugaad. I'll come to the product that I designed in my third year. It's called Novo Carry. So my father is an engineer at a place called Rourkela Steel Plant, and if anyone has ever been to any sort of steel plants, these are sweltering hot places, and they often require you to climb a crane, and you do not have access to things like refrigeration there. So what happens to people with conditions like arthritis, diabetes, people who take growth hormones? All of these conditions require injectables that need to be stored between 2 to 8 degrees of temperature. And if you do not store it in that particular range of temperature, it can crystallize, which is very deadly for you. So I would see, for the longest time, my father travel back from his office for his lunch, around 10 kilometers just to take his pre-lunch shot and then his lunch, and then he would have to drive back. So instead of a pleasant lunch, it was quite a grueling experience. So this bit stuck with me, and when I was given a chance to design a biomedical device, I wanted to pick it up. I also spoke to a lot of other people with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and I got to hear a lot of interesting stories. Stories of, like, a lot of you guys might experience that you stay in shared spaces like hostels, and what happens there? You leave your insulin, you leave something sensitive somewhere, and it has the chance to be tampered with. So I would talk to people in colleges, and they would say, we don't want to leave it in the hostel refrigerator because we don't know when someone's going to poke a hole in my insulin, and it's going to go rancid. It's very expensive. Insulin can cost up to 10,000 rupees. People would also say that, when we are taking long train journeys, which can be up to 20 hours, you would often, every alternate station or every 3 stations, get off, get a cool bottle of water, put your insulin inside of it, and then travel. The brilliance of Jugaad, right? You can also get ice packs, obviously, but what happens when they melt? We live in a very humid climate, and ice packs are unfortunately not eternal. So that's where NovoCarry came in. And this is a product that was inspired by a power bank, like the form of a power bank, because it's not just about keeping the insulin cool, but it is also about addressing the stares, the questions, and the way people feel ashamed to be a patient out in public, to be carrying syringes or medicines out in public, not to be known as the person who has to take a break to go to the bathroom and take the quick shot of insulin, essentially. This was a workshop where we built a lot of the prototypes, the initial prototypes for NovoCarry. And during this time, I also got to speak with a lot of people that have done great work in this space and learn from their stories, because a lot of design is about learning from what has already been built and developing from there on. Right. So a question that would often come into our mind was, how do you, instead of making a product something that someone has to use, it's an insulin cooler, you put your insulin inside of it, how do you sort of make the design principle in such a way that you want to use it? Like, you never forget to carry your headphones, you never forget to carry your wallet. Why? Because you don't mind putting it on the table. You don't mind carrying it in your left hand. So it's not quite an accessory, but how do we sort of bring that dignity through our work into this product that is traditionally associated with, well, disease or sickness? And how do we sort of bring dignity into this? And this was a question that my faculties, you can see some of them here, and my batchmates, we really struggled with. And the answer was to work with a form that is very inconspicuous, like that looks like something else. Like when you see it on the table, it's just a power bank, or it's just a SSD maybe. You wouldn't think twice about being curious about it. Or rather, if you are a patient, you wouldn't think twice or be ashamed of carrying it somewhere, or being ashamed of being seen with it somewhere. And that's how NovoCarry came into being. It is a portable insulin cooling solution that you can put 2 ampules in, and you can also put a single syringe in. The syringe itself does not require any refrigeration, and only the ampules require refrigeration, for which we use Peltier chips, and a Peltier chip. And we are still working on the prototypes. We are still in the R&D phase, so we're still working on the prototypes, and we are trying to get the temperature as low as possible while still keeping the device as small and as compact as possible, because keeping it as small as possible and as portable as possible was the intended design principle. Because if it's just another large device, it could be honestly one of those tiffin boxes with ice in it, which is what one of the users said. These were some of the internals. I wouldn't bore you with the details, but as you can see, it has a PCB to it, it has a battery to it, it has the copper tube in which we keep the ampules basically, and then the Peltier chip, and then the cold sinks and the heat sinks. It's about 20 centimeters in length, and the entire case, for the prototype at least, we 3D printed it. I was very lucky to recently present this project to Mansukh Mandavia sir, the Minister of Employment at Viksit Bharat, a topic that we've spoken a lot about on this podium here today. And it was also a very enriching experience where innovators from all around the country sort of got together, and you got to hear a lot of interesting projects that have been done in every corner of the country in terms of tech, in terms of biomedical, etc. Right. And then we have to come sort of out of NovoCarry, and I would love to talk about some of my other projects. I also very recently participated in something called World Skills Asia, wherein I participated in the category of industrial design technology. I was selected bronze in India Skills, which is the national version of Skill India, India Skills. And this was held in Taiwan, where India stood third, luckily. And I found that very interesting, especially participating in international forums like this. It does give you truly exposure where the ethos in which we are being taught design in, and the ethos in which the Chinese are being taught design in, or maybe the Koreans, it's truly completely different. They come from such abundance where we sort of design with sort of, how can I just make this work? They've already cracked that somehow. How can we make this work? And now they design for, how can we make someone want to buy it? How can we make someone want to own it? And that is the sort of taste and craft that I wanted to start a dialogue on here. This is another one of my projects that went on to win the Taiwan Student Design Award, which is a student design competition that is done by the government of Taiwan. This was inspired by some rural families in Umri, as one of the previous speakers talked about. Punjab and Haryana are actually not, they're not supposed to be growing the amount of rice that they currently are, and that is causing a lot of groundwater depletion. And to solve that, a lot of the people there are actually, like the people in the rural places there, they end up having to drink a lot of contaminated water. So using ultrafiltration methods and bicycle pumps that were recycled from the villages that we were doing our research in, this was a community water filter that was developed. And yeah, This were some snapshots from it on how people access their water and gather water in the places that we worked at. And it was truly humbling to see how something, like we speak of SDGs, we speak of good design, we speak of all of these like developmental goals all the time, and yet something as basic as water, we, we somehow still have not cracked that. This was India Skills. I worked on something, I worked on a coffee dispenser for the blind and the busy, essentially. Like when you are visually impaired, how do you access your hot beverages without scalding yourself with a hot beverage? Right, that was Taiwan. And I would like to leave you with that thought, ki how do we sort of start designing for a world with better taste, better craft, sort of remembering the elegance of our previous designs, of our temples, of our culture, of our saris, of our textiles, and how do we sort of design for a world that we really want to live in and we want to use, rather than something that we just need to. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.